She crouched behind the large dumpster, shivering in the cold evening air. The city's streets were noisy, filled with the sounds of cars honking and people rushing past. But for her, it felt as if she was invisible. She had learned long ago that drawing attention to herself was dangerous. People didn't care. People didn't look for kids like her. And she had no one to turn to anyway. The garbage around her smelled bad, but it was better than the empty stomach that had been gnawing at her all day. She reached into a torn backpack and pulled out a half-eaten piece of bread she had found earlier. The bread was stale, but it would have to do. She remembered how she had ended up here. Her life hadn't always been like this. She had a small room once, a bed, a warm blanket. But those days were gone. Things had changed so quickly, leaving her with nothing. She didn't even remember exactly when it had started. One day, there had been meals, laughter, and the sound of someone calling her name. And the next day she was alone. She wandered through the streets, scavenging, hiding, trying to survive. Every day was a challenge, and every night was a test of her courage. She had learned to sleep in corners, in abandoned buildings, or behind dumpsters. Anywhere that offered a bit of protection from the cold and the people who might hurt her. Tonight was colder than usual. The wind cut through her thin jacket. She pulled it tighter around herself and pressed her knees to her chest. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she needed to find something to eat soon. She had spotted a few scraps near the alley earlier, but by the time she got there, most of it had been taken by others like her. Hunger was a constant companion, and she had become skilled at ignoring it. But the emptiness in her stomach was impossible to forget. She tried to think about something else. Anything else, to take her mind off the gnawing hunger. She remembered the few good days she had, the times when someone had cared for her. Those memories were blurry now, like photographs that had been left out in the sun too long. Faces were forgotten, names even more so. She couldn't even remember the sound of a comforting voice. But sometimes, in quiet moments, she imagined what it would feel like to be safe again. To have someone genuinely care about her. The sounds of the city were louder now, with footsteps echoing off the walls. She pressed herself closer to the dumpster, hoping to remain unseen. People walked by without noticing her, wrapped up in their own lives, their own worries. She felt invisible, and in a way that was a relief. Being noticed often meant trouble. People shouted at her, waved her away, or worse, they stared and whispered things that made her feel smaller. Over time, she had learned to move quickly, to avoid eye contact, to blend in with the shadows. But tonight something felt different. She couldn't quite place it, but there was a feeling in the air, like something was about to happen. She shivered again, not just from the cold, but from the uncertainty. Her small hands were numb, and she rubbed them together to get some warmth. She glanced around the alley, noting every sound, every movement. Survival meant paying attention to details, and she had become very good at it. She knew which areas were safe, which streets to avoid, and which people might offer a kind word or a dangerous glance. It was a delicate balance, one she had learned through trial and error. Suddenly, she heard a voice calling out, soft and gentle. It wasn't like the usual shouting or laughter of strangers. It was calm, patient, and it made her pause. She froze, unsure whether to run or stay. The voice repeated, asking if she was okay. Her heart raced. Who was this person? Was it someone trying to hurt her? Or could it be someone different, someone who might actually help? She wanted to run, to disappear into the shadows, but something in the tone made her stay. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't loud or angry. It was quiet and caring, and she hadn't heard a voice like that in a long time. She peeked around the edge of the dumpster and saw an older woman standing there. She was dressed neatly, not in the torn, dirty clothes that most people wore in the alley. There was something about her posture, the way she held herself, that made her seem calm and kind. The girl hesitated, unsure if she should trust this stranger. But the woman didn't approach aggressively. She stayed a few steps back, giving space, and spoke again in the same gentle voice, asking if she needed help. The girl's instincts told her to run. But part of her wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, this person could be different. She had learned that kindness was rare, but it still existed somewhere. She slowly emerged from her hiding place, her eyes cautious, scanning the woman's face for any sign of danger. The woman smiled softly, and the girl noticed that her eyes were warm, filled with genuine concern. It was a look she hadn't seen in years, a look that reminded her of safety and home. The woman knelt down to be at her level, making herself smaller, less intimidating. She asked simple questions, not pushing too much, just enough to show that she cared. The girl hesitated, then finally whispered her name. The woman's eyes widened slightly, and a gentle smile formed on her lips. She reached out her hand, not to grab, but as an invitation. The girl took a small step forward, then another, until she was close enough to see the woman's face clearly. There was something familiar there, something she couldn't quite place. But it felt important. The woman didn't overwhelm her with words. She simply asked very softly if the girl knew who she was. The question was simple, yet it carried a weight that made the girl stop in her tracks. She didn't understand at first, but she felt the sincerity behind it. There was no anger, no judgment, just curiosity and hope. The girl looked at her hands, then back at the woman, unsure of what to say. For a moment, time seemed to stand still in the alley. The city noises faded into the background, leaving only the two of them and the unspoken connection forming between them. The girl's mind raced with memories she had tried to forget. Faces, voices, laughter, and warmth. She shook her head slightly, trying to push them away, but the feeling remained. She felt something inside her stir, a small flicker of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. She realized that maybe, just maybe, this person could change her life, but the fear remained. Could she really trust someone again? After everything she had been through, it was hard to believe. The woman sensed her hesitation and didn't push. She simply waited, patient and kind, showing that she respected the girl's space. She offered a small snack from her bag, something simple but nourishing. The girl hesitated, then slowly took it. She had been hungry, and the food was a reminder that someone was thinking about her, caring for her well-being. She ate slowly, savoring the taste, and for the first time in a long while, she felt a small sense of comfort as the evening went on. The woman stayed with her, talking gently, asking questions about how she had been surviving, where she had slept and if anyone had been helping her. The girl answered cautiously, not revealing too much, but the trust was slowly building. She noticed that the woman didn't judge her, didn't make her feel small or ashamed. That was new, and it felt strange, yet comforting. She had forgotten what it felt like to be treated with kindness without an agenda, and it was almost overwhelming. The girl felt a mix of emotions, fear, hope, curiosity, and longing. She wanted to run, to hide, but she also wanted to stay, to see what this could mean. The woman's calm presence, her patient questions, and the warmth in her eyes made it hard to leave. The alley didn't seem so lonely anymore, and for the first time in a long time, the girl felt like maybe someone really cared. She realized that this moment could be the start of something new, something she had been waiting for without even knowing it. The night grew darker, but the woman didn't leave. She stayed, quietly talking, listening, and showing that she was trustworthy. The girl, for the first time in years, felt a small sense of safety. She knew that the world outside the alley was still harsh and unforgiving, but for this moment, she was not alone. She had been found, not just physically, but in a way that touched something deep inside her heart. The thought of what might come next both scared her and gave her hope. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing: she was not invisible anymore. The girl stayed where she was, still unsure if she should trust the woman in front of her. The alley was quiet now, except for distant city noises that reminded her she was still alone in the world. The woman didn't push her. She simply waited patiently, keeping a gentle smile on her face. It was strange for the girl to meet someone who didn't rush her, who didn't demand answers, who didn't judge her for being dirty or hungry. She had spent most of her life hiding from people, thinking that all adults were either indifferent or cruel. But this woman was different. Slowly, the girl stepped closer, her eyes never leaving the woman's face. The woman lowered herself slightly to be at eye level, showing that she wanted to meet her as an equal, not someone to be scared of. Her voice was soft as she asked simple questions. questions that seemed easy to answer, yet carried a weight the girl couldn't fully understand. She asked about the girl's day, if she had eaten, and if anyone had helped her recently. The girl answered in small whispers, keeping her sentences short, still unsure how much she could reveal. The woman listened carefully, nodding and giving encouraging words. She didn't interrupt or rush her, which made the girl feel a little more comfortable. She had almost forgotten what it was like to have someone truly listen. The woman occasionally offered her small comforts, like a warm drink in a cup from a thermos or a soft blanket that smelled faintly of home. The girl hesitated at first, but eventually accepted them. Every small gesture reminded her that someone actually cared as they sat together. The woman asked about the girl's family, speaking in a gentle, almost careful way. The girl froze. Family was a word that had lost all meaning for her. She remembered her parents and a grandmother vaguely, but the memories were clouded by years of neglect and loneliness. She shook her head, saying she didn't have anyone. The woman's eyes softened, and she nodded as if she understood. She didn't press, but she didn't let the moment pass either. There was a long pause. The woman watched the girl, studying her face, and then asked the question that made the girl's heart skip. "Do you know who I am?" The girl's brow furrowed, and she shook her head slowly. Her stomach felt tight with anticipation, fear, and a tiny spark of hope she didn't want to admit. The woman's smile didn't falter. She gently said, "I think you are my granddaughter." The words were soft, but they struck the girl like lightning. Her mind raced. Could it be true? How could it be true? She had thought her grandmother was gone, that she would never see family again. The girl wanted to ask questions, so many questions, but the words got stuck in her throat. Instead, she looked at the woman closely. There was a warmth in her eyes, a kind of honesty she hadn't seen in a long time. She studied the woman's face, searching for any hint that she was lying. But the woman looked calm and genuine, waiting patiently for the girl to understand. Slowly, she asked, "How do you know?" Her voice was barely audible, almost trembling. The woman reached into her bag and pulled out a small photograph. She held it carefully, as if it were fragile. The girl's eyes widened. The photograph showed a younger version of the woman and a small child. Something clicked in the girl's mind. The child in the photo looked like her. Her heart pounded. Could it really be? She hadn't believed in happy endings for a long time. But something deep inside her told her this was different. The woman put the photograph down and gently said, I have been looking for you for a long time. I never stopped hoping I would find you." Her voice shook slightly, showing the emotion she had kept inside for years. The girl's eyes filled with tears, and she didn't know how to react. She had spent so many nights alone wondering if anyone had cared. And now here was someone telling her that they had never stopped looking. The weight of that thought was almost too much to bear. The woman spoke more softly, explaining that she was her grandmother. She told her that circumstances had kept them apart, that mistakes and misunderstandings had led to years of separation, and that she regretted every moment they had lost. She spoke with honesty and love, carefully choosing words that wouldn't overwhelm the girl. The girl listened, trying to process everything. It was hard to believe, but everything the woman said seemed true. Her heart was torn between hope and disbelief. The girl finally asked, "Why now?" "Why me?" The woman took a deep breath. "Because I never gave up. No matter where life took you, I always believed I would find you. And now I have." She reached out her hand, not demanding but offering. The girl looked at it for a long time. Her instincts told her to run, to hide. But a part of her wanted to trust, wanted to believe that this could be real. Slowly, she placed her small hand in the woman's. The warmth from the touch spread through her, giving her a small sense of safety she hadn't felt in years. The woman didn't rush her into anything. She simply stayed with her, offering comfort and reassurance. They talked quietly about small things, the weather, the noises of the city, simple observations about the alley. The girl began to feel a tiny bit of normalcy, something she had missed for so long. She realized that even small gestures could mean a lot when someone was truly kind. As the evening went on, the woman helped her stand and suggested they move to a slightly safer area in the alley. where there were fewer shadows and less noise. She didn't force her to go anywhere she didn't want to, but the girl felt a small sense of trust forming. She followed her slowly, taking careful steps. Every movement was cautious, every glance filled with awareness. She had learned to survive by being alert, but she began to notice that the woman wasn't a threat. Instead, she seemed to be a source of calm in the chaos of her life. The woman asked about the girl's experiences, gently probing for her past while being careful not to overwhelm her. The girl shared some small stories, bits of memories that had stayed with her despite the years of hardship. She talked about how she had learned to fend for herself, how she had found shelter and food, and how she had survived the harshness of the streets. The woman listened without judgment, occasionally nodding or offering a comforting word. The girl noticed that she wasn't criticized or blamed for what had happened. That was new, and it was comforting. They found a small, quiet corner. The woman offered the girl some food and water she had brought. The girl accepted cautiously, still unsure if it was real. She ate slowly, savoring every bite, feeling a little stronger with each mouthful. She hadn't had a meal like this in a long time, and the kindness of the gesture struck her deeply. The woman talked gently, telling her that she wanted to help her, not just for tonight, but for as long as she needed. The girl didn't know how to respond. She had never had someone promise care and actually mean it. The woman didn't overwhelm her with more questions or force her to explain everything at once. She allowed the girl to take small steps, to open up at her own pace. That patience was almost a miracle in the girl's eyes. Slowly, she started to feel something she hadn't felt in a long time: trust. She began to believe that maybe, just maybe, this woman could be different, that she could be a grandmother who cared, who wanted to help her. It was a fragile hope, but it was real. It made her heart feel lighter. Hours passed and the girl began to relax slightly. She realized that she wasn't in immediate danger. She wasn't being judged or scolded. Instead, she was met with understanding and patience. The woman stayed with her through the night, keeping her company, talking softly, making her feel less alone. For the first time in years, the girl didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, noticed, and perhaps even loved. The thought was overwhelming, but it brought tears to her eyes. The night was long, but it was the first night in a long time that she felt safe. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew one thing: she had found someone who cared. And for now, that was enough. She rested her head slightly against the woman's shoulder, feeling a small sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She realized that this could be the beginning of a new chapter, one where she didn't have to face the world alone. And as she drifted into a light sleep, she felt a small flicker of hope ignite within her heart. A hope she hadn't dared to feel in a long time. The first rays of morning light filtered through the alley, casting long shadows on the walls. The girl stirred, waking slowly, her body stiff from sleeping on the cold ground. She opened her eyes and saw the woman sitting nearby, watching her carefully, but with a gentle smile. The warmth of the morning sun, mixed with the calm presence of the woman, made her feel safer than she had in years. She blinked a few times, trying to remember where she was and how she had ended up here. The events of the previous night began to settle in her mind, and the realization hit her that she wasn't alone anymore. Someone had found her, someone who seemed to care. The woman knelt down next to her, speaking softly so as not to startle her. She reminded the girl of who she was and gently explained that she had been searching for her for a very long time. She showed the girl more photographs, some with her parents and others with herself holding a younger version of the girl. The girl looked closely, comparing the images to her own reflection. Slowly, she began to recognize features that were undeniably hers. The shock of it made her stomach twist, a mix of fear and disbelief. Could this really be true? Could she have a grandmother who had never stopped caring about her? The woman didn't rush her. She understood that the girl needed time to process everything. She allowed her to hold the photographs, to touch them, and to look at them as long as she wanted. The girl's fingers trembled as she traced the edges of the images, memories and emotions swirling inside her. It was overwhelming, but also comforting. For the first time in a long time, she felt a connection to her past, to a family she thought she had lost forever. As the morning grew brighter, the woman suggested they move to a safer place. a nearby cafe where they could sit and talk without the noise and chaos of the streets. The girl hesitated, unsure if she could trust this promise of safety. But the woman's calm reassurance encouraged her to take a step forward. Together, they walked through the streets, the girl staying close to the woman, occasionally glancing around to make sure they were not being followed. Her instincts, honed over years of survival, kept her alert. But the woman's presence made her feel more secure than she had in a long time. When they reached the cafe, the woman chose a quiet corner, away from most of the people, where they could talk privately. She ordered something simple to eat and drink for the girl, who accepted cautiously. As she ate, she began to notice how different it felt to sit in a place that was warm and safe, where no one was shouting at her or ignoring her. The sounds of clinking cups and soft conversations seemed almost soothing, and she felt a strange comfort in the ordinary routine of people going about their day. The woman began to ask gentle questions about the girl's experiences, her journey, and her life on the streets. The girl spoke in small fragments, sharing some memories but keeping the most painful parts to herself. The woman listened with patience, never interrupting, never judging. She only nodded and offered words of understanding, creating a space where the girl felt safe enough to speak. Every small story she shared, every memory she recalled, strengthened the bond between them. She felt seen, truly seen, in a way that was foreign to her as the conversation continued. The woman began to tell stories from her own life, of mistakes and regrets, of the longing she had felt for the girl all these years. The girl listened, slowly letting the warmth of the woman's words settle in her heart. She began to understand that the woman had genuinely searched for her. She wasn't just a stranger offering temporary kindness. This realization brought a flood of emotions, relief, hope, and a small spark of joy that she hadn't felt in years. The woman reached into her bag and pulled out a small notebook. Inside were more photographs, letters, and notes she had kept over the years, all documenting her search for the girl. She handed the notebook to her, allowing her to turn the pages at her own pace. The girl's eyes widened as she looked through the pages, recognizing faces and places and feeling a strange mix of sadness for what was lost and hope for what could still be. Each page told a story of care, persistence, and love, and she realized that this woman had never truly abandoned her. After some time, the woman gently asked the girl if she would like to come with her to a more permanent place, somewhere safe where she could rest, eat, and begin to rebuild her life. The girl froze, torn between fear and hope. The streets had been her only home for so long, and leaving them meant stepping into the unknown. But something inside her told her that this was a chance she couldn't ignore, a chance for a life she had only dreamed of. She looked into the woman's eyes and saw nothing but kindness and patience. Slowly, she nodded, a silent agreement to trust, at least for now. The woman smiled softly, not pushing, not rushing. She allowed the girl to gather her few belongings, small items she had managed to keep, and together they walked to a nearby car. The journey was quiet, filled with small glances and tentative smiles. The girl noticed how different the world seemed from the back seat of the car, how clean and orderly everything looked compared to the alley she had called home. It was almost overwhelming, but also comforting. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was heading somewhere safe, somewhere that could be home. When they arrived at the woman's residence, the girl was struck by the warmth and beauty of the place. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, filled with light, warmth, and comfort. The woman gave her a tour, showing her a small room that would be hers. Simple but cozy, with a soft bed, clean sheets, and a small window that let in the sunlight. The girl hesitated at the doorway, unsure if she deserved such comfort, but the woman encouraged her gently, assuring her that she was welcome and safe. Over the next few hours, the woman helped the girl settle in, offering clothes, a warm bath, and a nourishing meal. The girl was hesitant at first, still unsure of the unfamiliar kindness, but slowly began to relax. She realized that the world outside the alley could be different, that people could be caring and genuine. She felt a small spark of trust growing within her, a feeling she hadn't experienced in years. As evening approached, the woman suggested they sit together and talk about the future. not forcing the girl to share everything at once, but encouraging her to think about what she wanted and needed. The girl listened, slowly imagining a life where she could feel safe, learn, and grow. The woman spoke of school, friends, and activities she could try, always careful to let the girl set the pace. For the first time, the girl allowed herself to dream, imagining a world beyond survival, a world filled with possibility. Throughout the day, the girl began to feel a sense of belonging that she had never known. The woman's gentle patience, her unwavering kindness, and her understanding created a space where the girl could begin to heal. She realized that the past, while painful, didn't have to define her future. She could start over, learn to trust again, and build a life where she was valued and cared for. The thought was both exciting and frightening, but it brought a small sense of hope that she clung to tightly as night fell. The woman tucked her into the soft bed, staying nearby until she drifted into sleep. The girl's mind was filled with thoughts of the day, of the alley, of the photographs, and of the woman who had found her. She felt a quiet gratitude, a sense that someone had seen her when no one else had, and that someone cared enough to change her life. The flicker of hope in her heart burned a little brighter, a promise of the new beginning that awaited her, a beginning she had never dared to imagine before. The following morning, the girl woke to the soft sunlight spilling into her room. For a moment, she stayed in bed, simply listening to the quiet of the house. It was a kind of silence she had never known on the streets, a calm that felt almost strange. Slowly, she sat up and looked around the room, noticing the warmth, the comfort, and the sense of safety. She realized that she could move freely here without fear, that no one was chasing her, yelling at her, or ignoring her existence. It was a small revelation, but it felt monumental. She had never known what it was like to feel secure. The woman knocked gently on the door and entered with a smile. She carried a tray with a simple breakfast, warm food that smelled inviting. The girl's stomach growled, and she hesitated for only a moment before taking a seat at the table. As she ate, the woman spoke softly, asking how she slept, if she felt rested, and if she felt ready for the day. The girl looked at her and nodded, feeling a quiet comfort in being asked, in having someone care about her needs. It was a small act, but one that made her heart swell with gratitude. After breakfast, the woman suggested they start the day slowly, allowing the girl to adjust at her own pace. She explained that there were no expectations, only opportunities to begin rebuilding her life. She spoke of school, of learning new things, and of discovering hobbies and talents the girl might enjoy. The girl listened quietly, her mind turning over these unfamiliar ideas. The thought of school was both exciting and scary. She had never attended regularly, had never felt the support that learning could provide. But the woman's encouragement and patience made the idea feel possible. The woman took her to a nearby park, a small green space that felt almost magical after the harsh concrete streets she had been used to. The girl took in the sights and sounds, noticing the trees, the soft rustling of leaves, and the distant laughter of other children playing. She stayed close to the woman, hesitant at first, but gradually allowed herself to take small steps forward. For the first time in years, she felt a tiny bit of freedom, a sense that she could explore the world without fear. They sat on a bench together, watching the children play. The woman asked the girl about her interests, about what she liked to do, and about what made her happy. The girl hesitated, unsure of how to answer. She had spent so much time surviving that she had forgotten what it meant to enjoy life. Slowly, she began to share small things, moments she had cherished, small games she had played alone, and dreams she had quietly held in her heart. The woman listened intently, never interrupting, always encouraging. The girl felt heard, understood, and accepted. As the day went on, the woman introduced her to simple routines. They visited a library where the girl could pick books that interested her, and the woman encouraged her to read and explore. She explained that learning could be fun, that knowledge could be a tool for the future. The girl felt a spark of curiosity she hadn't known in years. For the first time, she felt that her mind could be free, that she could dream and imagine without limits. It was a strange and wonderful feeling. After the library, they walked through quiet streets, stopping at a small market where the girl could choose some new clothes. She felt a mix of excitement and embarrassment, having never owned anything of her own that was new and clean. The woman gave her time, letting her pick what she liked without judgment or rush. The girl finally chose a simple outfit, feeling a quiet pride in her choices. She realized that this was a kind of independence she had never experienced before. A chance to express herself and be seen as more than just a child surviving on the streets. Throughout the day, the woman continued to guide her gently. She spoke about the importance of trust, of understanding that some people could truly care, and that accepting help did not make her weak. The girl listened, absorbing each word, slowly allowing the woman's wisdom and kindness to sink in. It was a slow process, rebuilding trust, but with each gentle conversation, each act of care, the girl felt a little stronger, a little braver. By late afternoon, they returned home. The woman suggested that they spend some quiet time together, perhaps drawing, writing, or simply sitting and talking. The girl chose to sit by the window, looking out at the city she had once feared. She noticed the sunlight glinting off the buildings, people walking with purpose, and she felt a strange sense of belonging. The woman sat beside her, speaking softly about the importance of dreams, of planning, and of finding small joys in life. The girl listened, absorbing the lessons and feeling a growing hope within her heart. The evening came, and the woman prepared a simple dinner. They ate together, sharing stories of the day and talking about what the next day might hold. The girl began to see that life could be predictable in a comforting way, that routines could provide stability, and that she could begin to rely on someone without fear. The warmth of the home, the kindness of the woman, and the safety of the environment made her feel something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Later, they moved to the living room, where the woman suggested a quiet activity to wind down the day. They looked through more photographs, talked about favorite memories, and slowly shared hopes for the future. The girl realized that for the first time, someone had taken the time to understand her, to help her imagine a life beyond survival. She felt a quiet gratitude, mixed with cautious hope. It was a strange feeling to trust again, but it was also liberating. As night approached, the woman guided the girl to her room. She helped her settle into bed, ensuring she was comfortable and warm. The girl lay there, thinking about the day, about the experiences, and about the woman who had changed her life in ways she could hardly describe. She realized that this was more than just finding a safe place to stay. It was about being seen, being valued, and being loved. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope that life could be different, that she could be happy, and that she could belong. The woman stayed nearby, quietly reading, offering a calm presence that reassured the girl. Slowly, her eyes grew heavy, and she drifted into a peaceful sleep. She dreamed of a world where she was safe, where she could learn, grow, and be loved. It was a world she had never dared to imagine, and yet for the first time, it felt real. The warmth in her heart, the trust in her mind, and the hope in her soul began to grow, marking the start of a new chapter in her life, a chapter filled with care, love, and the promise of a brighter future. The next morning, the girl woke feeling a sense of calm she had never known before. The sun streamed through her window, lighting up the room and giving everything a warm glow. She took a deep breath and felt a quiet happiness she didn't fully understand yet. The woman was already awake, preparing breakfast, moving quietly through the kitchen. She glanced at the girl and gave her a soft smile, one that seemed to say, "You are safe. You are home." The girl returned the smile, feeling the first stirrings of trust and comfort in her heart. They ate breakfast together in silence, the quiet broken only by the sounds of the morning. The girl noticed how different this was from the streets she had known. There was peace, order, and kindness in every movement the woman made. It was a new rhythm, one that she had never experienced before, but it felt good, almost healing. The woman spoke gently about plans for the day, asking what she wanted to do, letting her have a voice in the decisions. The girl nodded slowly, starting to feel that her choices mattered, that she was not invisible anymore. After breakfast, the woman suggested they go for a walk outside. The girl agreed hesitantly, her steps careful but curious. They strolled through the neighborhood, The girl noticed things she had never paid attention to before: the colors of the buildings, the sound of birds, the laughter of children. Each small detail felt new, almost magical. The woman pointed out interesting things along the way, asking her what she noticed, encouraging her to share her thoughts. Slowly, the girl began to speak more, describing things she liked and didn't like. The woman listened with care, making her feel important and valued. They stopped at a small park where children were playing. The girl watched them from a distance, her heart heavy with longing. She had never had the chance to play like that, to feel carefree, and she felt a pang of sadness. The woman noticed and sat beside her, gently taking her hand. She spoke softly about how it was okay to feel sad about the past, but that the future could be different. She told her that there were opportunities to learn, to make friends, and to discover joys she had never known. The girl listened quietly, feeling a small flicker of hope ignite in her chest. They returned home after the walk, and the woman suggested they spend some time exploring the house and the garden. The girl wandered slowly, touching the flowers, looking at the books, and noticing the details she had never experienced before. Everything was clean, bright, and inviting. She felt a strange sense of wonder, as if she had stepped into a new world. The woman watched her quietly, allowing her to explore at her own pace, never rushing or pushing her. The girl began to feel a sense of ownership over this space, a feeling she had never known before. In the afternoon, the woman suggested they begin some small lessons. She wanted the girl to start reading and writing, but in a gentle, encouraging way. The girl hesitated, her mind remembering the struggles of learning in a harsh environment. But the woman reassured her that it would be slow and patient. They sat together at a small table, and the woman handed her a book with large letters and colorful pictures. She guided her slowly, praising every small success. The girl's confidence began to grow as she realized she could learn. She could understand, and she could achieve something new after the lessons. The woman encouraged her to draw and write about her day. The girl picked up crayons and paper, initially unsure of what to do. Slowly, she began to sketch the park, the flowers, and the small joys of her morning. She added herself in the pictures, smiling, something she hadn't done in a long time. The woman praised her creativity, not judging, simply appreciating her effort. The girl felt a quiet pride she had never experienced, a sense of accomplishment and recognition. As evening approached, the woman suggested they cook dinner together. The girl was hesitant but curious. She watched as the woman guided her through simple steps, chopping vegetables, stirring pots, and seasoning the food. For the first time, she felt part of a shared task, a sense of belonging. The woman spoke gently, telling stories of meals she had shared with family and how cooking could be a way to connect and care for others. The girl listened, laughing at small moments, enjoying the warmth and companionship. Dinner was a quiet celebration of small successes. They ate together, talking about the day, sharing stories, and imagining what tomorrow could bring. The girl began to feel a sense of hope, a belief that life could be kind, that people could care, and that she could find happiness. The woman spoke of possibilities, encouraging her to think about school, hobbies, and friendships. Slowly, the girl began to imagine a life beyond survival, a life filled with love, learning, and opportunity. After dinner, they settled into the living room for a quiet evening. The woman suggested reading together, and the girl picked a storybook. As the woman read aloud, the girl listened intently, imagining the scenes in her mind. She realized how much she had missed: the simple joys of childhood, the comfort of a story, the warmth of being near someone who cared, and the security of knowing she was safe. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that life could be different, that she could be loved, and that she could belong. Later, the woman guided her to her room for the night. She helped her settle into bed, making sure she was warm and comfortable. The girl lay there, reflecting on the day, on the kindness she had experienced, and on the woman who had found her. She realized that this was more than just a safe place to stay. It was the start of a new life. She thought about school, friends, hobbies, and the possibilities that lay ahead. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to dream without fear, to imagine a future filled with hope, As she drifted off to sleep, she felt the warmth of the woman's presence nearby. She realized that she had found more than a guardian. She had found someone who truly cared, someone who would help her navigate the world with patience and love. The flicker of hope she had felt in the alley had grown into a steady flame, a promise that her life could change, that she could be happy, and that she could belong. The girl fell asleep with a quiet smile, dreaming of a future she had never dared to imagine. A future filled with love, trust, and the promise of new beginnings. The journey had been long and painful, but now, for the first time, she felt that everything could be different, and that the woman who had found her would be there to guide her every step of the way. The following morning, the girl woke feeling a strange mix of excitement and nervousness. She had spent several days now in the woman's home. Each day had brought new experiences, small triumphs, and moments of comfort she had never known. Today felt different. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, feeling that she was ready to take another step toward the life she had only imagined. She rose from bed, stretched, and looked around her room. The sunlight spilled in, highlighting the neatness of the space, the warmth of the bed, and the sense of safety that filled the room. For the first time, she truly felt at home. The woman knocked gently on the door and entered with a bright smile. She carried a tray with breakfast, simple and warm, but enough to give the girl a sense of care and attention. As the girl ate, she noticed how different this was from her life on the streets. There was no rush, no fear, no hunger gnawing at her stomach. The woman spoke softly about the plans for the day, asking what she would like to do, and giving her choices. The girl listened, feeling a quiet sense of empowerment in being asked, in being allowed to have a say. It was a small but meaningful gesture, one that made her feel valued. After breakfast, the woman suggested they take a walk to a nearby community center. The girl agreed, curious but cautious. As they walked, the woman encouraged her to look around, to notice the little things, the flowers blooming in window boxes, the sound of birds, and the laughter of children playing in a small park. Each detail felt new and exciting, a stark contrast to the harsh concrete streets she had known. The girl began to point out things she noticed, sharing small observations, and the woman listened with genuine interest. The girl felt a small thrill at being heard, having her thoughts appreciated. At the community center, the woman introduced her to the idea of learning new skills. There were classes for art, reading, and simple, practical skills that could help her in the future. The girl hesitated, unsure if she could manage, but the woman gently reassured her that they would take it slowly, that mistakes were okay, and that the goal was to discover what she enjoyed. The girl's heart raced with a mixture of fear and excitement. For the first time, she considered the possibility that she could succeed at something, that she could learn, and that she could enjoy it. They started with a small art class. The girl had never drawn much before, but she found herself captivated by the colors and shapes. The woman encouraged her to express herself freely, not worrying about making mistakes. Slowly, the girl began to create images that reflected her feelings and thoughts. Sometimes bright and joyful, sometimes more somber. The woman praised her efforts, not focusing on perfection but on expression. The girl felt a deep sense of satisfaction and pride, emotions she had rarely experienced before. Art became a small window into her world, a way to communicate without words. After the art class, they took a break and sat outside, sharing snacks the woman had packed. The girl looked around at other children, noticing how they interacted, laughed, and played. She felt a mix of longing and hope, realizing that she could join this world, that she could have friends and experiences she had never known. The woman spoke gently about making friends, about trust, and about finding people who cared. The girl listened, feeling a cautious optimism growing inside her. She realized that life could be different, that she could be part of a community, and that she could find joy in ways she had never imagined. As the day progressed, they explored more of the community center. There was a library, filled with books of all kinds, and the woman encouraged her to choose one that interested her. The girl carefully picked a storybook, feeling a thrill as she held it in her hands. They sat together in a quiet corner, and the woman read aloud, guiding her through the words and helping her understand the story. The girl listened intently, fascinated by the worlds she could explore through books. For the first time, she felt a hunger for learning, a desire to know more, and a joy in discovery. After their visit, they returned home, and the woman suggested a quiet activity before dinner. The girl chose to write in a notebook the woman had given her. She began with small sentences, describing her day, her feelings, and her observations. The act of writing felt powerful, as if she was claiming her experiences and thoughts for herself. The woman encouraged her, praised her efforts, and helped her with words when needed. The girl felt a growing confidence, realizing that she could express herself, that her voice mattered, and that she could be understood. Dinner was a shared activity. With the girl helping the woman prepare simple dishes, she enjoyed the process, noticing the small joys in creating something with her own hands, and the satisfaction of contributing. The woman spoke gently about the importance of care, patience, and shared effort. They ate together, talking about the day, sharing stories, and imagining what tomorrow might bring. The girl felt a sense of connection, belonging, and hope that was new and powerful. After dinner, the woman suggested they take a short walk around the garden. The girl noticed the flowers, the plants, and the small creatures moving about. She realized that life was full of small wonders she had never noticed, that beauty existed even in simple things. The woman spoke about observing the world carefully, about finding joy in details, and about the power of patience and care. The girl listened, absorbing the lessons, feeling a growing understanding of how life could be different from what she had known. As night fell, they returned home, and the woman guided her to her room. She helped her settle in bed, ensuring she was warm and comfortable. The girl lay there thinking about the day, reflecting on the experiences, and realizing how much had changed in just a few days. She felt a deep gratitude for the woman who had found her, cared for her, and helped her discover new possibilities. The hope she felt had grown stronger. She began to imagine a future where she could learn, grow, and be happy. Before she drifted off to sleep, the girl thought about the journey ahead. She knew there would be challenges, moments of fear, and times of uncertainty, but she also knew that she was not alone, that she had someone who would guide her, protect her, and care for her. She felt a quiet strength within herself, a sense that she could face the future with courage and hope. The warmth of the woman's presence nearby reassured her, and she closed her eyes with a small smile, dreaming of the life she was beginning to build, a life filled with love, trust, learning, and the promise of new beginnings. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in years, she felt ready to embrace it fully, knowing that she had a guiding hand to help her along the way.